Yo, what is up guys, welcome to the video. Today I'm going to show you 25 production tips that are going to help you a lot in your workflow, in your productions, to make everything sound better and all of that. Some of the production tips are only for FL Studio, but most of them are not, so I recommend you to wait until the end of this video because most of the production tips can help you a lot. And well, with that being said, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe so you miss any tutorial, and let's start with this video. The first tip is the cut itself. This is going to help you a lot when you have long samples that are on top of the others, but let me show you this in an example. So let's say that you have this ride here and a drop or whatever you want to have it, and as you can see, this ride is super long. So what's gonna happen is that when the second ride is gonna start playing, you still have the previous one, so the second one is gonna be a bit masked by the first one. So well, what you can do is cut this one and then do it again, but there is a lot faster way, and it's so simple. You just double click here, you go to this section and you click cut itself, just that. So now when the second ride is gonna start playing, the first one is gonna stop, and this of course only works when it's the same sample. The second tip is gonna help you to make your kick stand out more in the mix. So let's say we have something like this, we have the kick and we have the ride. This ride has a lot of attack, so it's gonna clash with the attack of the kick, and we don't want that. So what you have to do is so simple. Just load the volume shaper or the LFO tool or other sidechain plugins where you can touch the waveform, and what you have to do is just get a waveform like this. So this way you're gonna cut the transient of this sample and also do it a bit at the end, so it's gonna help a bit more. And most of the times I don't have it in 100%, I have it like in 70%, something like this. So now the ride has a bit less attack and the attack of the kick is gonna stand out a lot more. And if you want to know more about how to make your kick stand out more in the mix, I have a tutorial about it, so I recommend you to go and check that out. The third tip is going to help you on your layering. What I recommend you to do is when you're layering some sounds, it doesn't really matter if it's leads, chorus, bassline, whatever, try to have the same release in all of them, because this way you're going to have a more unified sound. Think that you have, for example, 3 leads that are playing the same melody, and each lead has a different release. So what's going to happen is that when it stops, the first lead is going to stop at one moment, then the second lead is going to stop a bit later, and the third lead is going to stop a bit later. So yeah, when them 3 start, it sounds unified, but when it stops, it doesn't sound unified because you're gonna hear the 3 leads. And if you want to know more about how to layer sounds, I have a full playlist here on YouTube where I'm showing you how to layer a lot of different sounds, so I recommend you to go and check those tutorials. The next tip is gonna help you to create automation for your samples in a better way. So let's say you want to create an automation for the volume of this sample here for whatever reason. So what you can do is just double click, right click here and create automation, but as you can see, it creates an automation as long as the project is. So this sometimes can be a bit annoying. So maybe what you're doing is just selecting this part here and then creating the automation. So this way you create an automation as long as what you selected, but in my opinion there is a better way and a lot easier way, and what you have to do is just click here, go to automate, and here you have the panning and the volume. So choose the one you like. In this case I'm going to choose volume, and as you can see it creates an automation of the volume as long as the sample is and only where this sample is. And this is also going to help you a lot when you have samples that are not quantized. For example, this one is not exactly in the beat, so what you can do is just create automation here and it's going to be a lot easier for you. And what if you want to have exactly the same automation into different things? Let's say that you have these 2 different sounds and you want to create a weird automation like this one, so it's gonna be super annoying to go here, you know, and now copy the value, paste the same value, know exactly the same tension and put it right here. So what you can do is just copy this automation. You double click on the automation, you go here, you copy the state, you go to the other automation and paste the state, and as you can see it creates exactly the same automation. The next tip is to learn the shortcuts of your DAW. This is so useful. I see a lot of people on YouTube that makes tutorials and don't use the shortcuts, and it takes a lot more time to do one thing that it takes to me because I know the shortcuts. So I recommend you to go and check all the shortcuts of your DAW and just learn the ones you think are useful. And if you want to know the ones of FL Studio that I use, I have a tutorial about it, so go and check that one because I'm sure it's going to help you a lot to improve your workflow. The next tip is for your percussions, and it's going to help to make them sound a lot tighter. So let's say you have a feel like this and you want to have it a lot tighter. It's so simple. You just load a transient processor like this one and just take the release and lower it down. I'm gonna do it a lot so you can see exactly what it's doing. So as you can see, it sounds a lot tighter. Of course this is too much, but I would do something like this probably. A lot of times I use this trick on the percussions of the drop, on the rides, the claps, and so all of them are gonna share something and are gonna have more or less the same release, so it's gonna sound a lot tighter and a lot better. The next tip is gonna help you to replace samples a lot faster, so this way you're gonna be able to check a lot of different samples for one part, and this way choose the best one. Here we have a kick and a ride, and we are not sure that this ride is the good one. So what you have to do is first make sure that you have selected here the ride, so double click it, and then go to the sample library and click the middle button of your mouse. We are checking and we think this one can be good, so just click the middle button of your mouse, and as you can see it replaces it. The following tip is going to help you to add a space in the middle of two different bars where you want to add something extra or something new. So let's say you have a breakdown like this one and you want to add another part here. So what you have to do is with the control on the left click, choose where you want to add this space, and now just click Control and Insert. So as you can see, it creates a blank space for your project, but the problem are the automation. It's not going to make it longer. So what I recommend you to do is go and cut all the automations and then do it. And maybe you're thinking to just go and do something like this, but I don't recommend you to do this because what is going to happen is that if you cut everything, now when you add the space, as you can see, this sample, as it got cut, now is here. So it's going to be weird to have it in this part. The next tip is to create and use the project bones of your tracks. If you don't know how to do this, I have a tutorial, so I recommend you to go and check that one. But of course, don't use them all the time for everything, because in that case, what you're going to have is just copy of your previous track, and you basically don't want that. But it's going to be so useful when you want to get that lead or that processing or that effect or whatever, because this way you're going to have exactly the same sound and you're going to do it a lot faster. The next tip is to create reverse samples of different sounds, synth, voices or whatever. This way you're going to help on the transitions, and also when you add new sounds, it's going to be a lot smoother to add them. To create a reverse of a sample is so simple. You just clone it, you make it unique, you reverse it, and you put it here. I recommend you to cut a bit of the beginning of it, so this way it's going to be a lot smoother and it doesn't have, in this case, the transient. And if you have a kind of vocal, a synth or something like this, what you have to do is put the reverb of that sound in the master, put it on 100%. I recommend you to put the decay on 10 seconds more or less, no pre-delay. Now you load Edison, you put it on play. Now what you have to do is just cut the beginning of this sample. So I'm gonna take the first U and now record this. Now just reverse this with Alt left, you drag it to the playlist, and you have your reverse sound. The next tip is to cut the lows of everything that is not the kick or the bass, because sometimes you don't hear the bass of that sound, you think there is no bass, but there is a little bit. And if you have a little bit of one sound, a little bit of another sound, a little bit of another sound, at the end you have a lot of rumble bass there. This is gonna make your sub bass to sound really dirty, and the kick and the sub bass are not gonna sound tight and clean. So for example, here we have a percussion sound that it shouldn't have any bass, but as you can see, it has a lot of bass here. So just cut it like this. And if you think you cut it too much, just come back a little bit. Or for example, this sound here, that as you can see has a little bit of bass, but it's important to cut that little bit. The next tip is to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because this way you're gonna make a lot better music. You're not gonna miss any tutorial, you're gonna learn a lot, and you're gonna make professional songs. Trust me. The next tip is to use Soothe for your vocals. It's gonna help a lot to make them sound super clean and don't have those resonating frequencies. It's so simple to use, but basically you just load it and it's gonna be reducing where there is a resonance. But if you want to know more about how to clean the vocals and how to use Soothe, I recommend you to go and check this video out here. The next tip is to use always the same sidechain for everything. I know a lot of people use Kickstart and they use one preset for the leads, another preset for the chords, another preset for the bass, and this is not good because at the end you're not creating like a unified sound. So I recommend you to always use the same sidechain and just tweak a little bit the mix of it. And of course, sometimes, for example, if you're using the first preset of Kickstart, that one is not good for your sub bass. So I recommend you to just load it, so this way it has like the same rhythm or the same piping effect, and then just use the volume shaper the way I show you in another tutorial where I show you how to get a tight sub bass, and this way everything is gonna sound a lot more unified. The next tip is to add a lot of reverb in your filter leads in the build-up. For this thing I just use Endless Smile. You can just increase the mix of your reverb or something like that, but I just use Endless Smile because it's a lot easier to use it for these things. So here we have some leads that are filtered, and as you can see here I have the automation of Endless Smile that is gonna add a lot of reverb at the beginning and it's gonna be taking it out. This way what you're creating is a feeling of that the leads are coming from the back, and then when the drop comes you don't have that reverb, and this way the leads are gonna sound in your face, and this way the impact of the drop is gonna be a lot better. Another tip is to add a crowd noise on your drops. This way first you're gonna cover a lot of space, you're gonna cover a lot of frequencies, and also you're gonna create a feeling like you're playing the song in a festival, and this helps a lot on the energy. So for example, in this track I have different crashes, white noises and so, but I decided to put this crowd sound. And if we increase a lot the volume, it's gonna sound like this. But of course, you don't want it that loud, just have it in the background. The next tip is gonna help you a lot in your mixdown, and is to mix in low volumes. If you're mixing in loud volumes, what is gonna happen is that you're not gonna be able to see if something is too loud or not, because basically everything is loud, so you're not gonna be able to check the balance of the sounds. So I recommend you to lower a lot the volume of your speakers or of your headphones, and this way it's gonna be a lot easier to check if something is too loud or something is not loud enough. And to continue with mixing tips, I recommend you to always check your mix in mono. Just go to the master, put it in mono, and check how it sounds. This is also gonna help you to balance better the volumes, and this is super important because if you don't have a good mono compatibility, what's gonna happen is that when your track is played on clubs or festivals, it's gonna sound bad because in those places the sound is always in mono. The next tip is to steal chords and bass progressions. And yeah, I'm talking about the stealing because there is a limited number of chord progressions, and if you check songs that are in the same key, you're gonna see that most of them has the same chord progression. So if you're not able to come up with a good chord progression, just go steal a chord progression from another track, and of course if you can, just try to switch the position of the chords, maybe add chords in the middle, change the rhythm of the chords and those things to make it a bit more unique. The next and the best tip is to get my masterclass and get my sample pack. The links are down in the description, and I'm sure that they're gonna help you a lot. My masterclass is focused on melodic genres, but of course can help in different genres, and my sample pack is also good for different kind of genres, not only one specific genre, so just go and get them. The next tip is gonna help you to mix better different sounds, and it's by reducing the frequencies where the other sound is important. So let's say that the leads are important in the 3000 Hz area, so just go on the chords and reduce a bit there. It doesn't need to be like 10 dBs of course, just 1 dB, 2 dBs, and then if the chords are more important in the 500 Hz area than the leads, just reduce a bit there on the leads. This way you're gonna mix a lot better your track, and every sound is gonna have a bit more space to breathe. So for example, if we check these leads, we could say they are present in these frequencies, so just go to the chords and reduce a little bit there. As you can hear, there is not a lot of difference in the chords, but this reduction is gonna give a bit more space to the leads. The next tip is for your vocals, and is to say chain everything to the vocals with an EQ. So for example, if you have this, these pads can clash a bit with the vocal, so you have to use the previous tip but in a side chaining way. So first check where the vocal is important. I would say in those two frequencies. Now put this EQ in the pad, but put it on 0. Put a peak controller to the vocal, and now you have to link the things. So go here, right click, link to controller, link it in peak, invert it, put the bass in 0.5 so this way is on the center, and just don't do it that much. So this way, every time the vocal is sounding, the pads are reducing on those frequencies, so it's giving more space to the vocals. But if you want to know more about how to mix vocals and how to get a professional sounding vocal, just check this tutorial that I did some weeks ago, and it's gonna help you a lot. The next tip is to use OTT, and most of the times I use it on my leads to make them sound brighter and tighter. What you have to do is just load OTT, have it on 100%, move the bands, and if you want to have it brighter, just move the high one to the right. And when you have a sound that is more or less what you want, just decrease the mix. I normally put it on 30%, and it's gonna sound a lot tighter and more powerful and brighter. And the last tip is also gonna help you in your vocals, especially in the compression of it. Sometimes we have vocals that have a lot of dynamics, so we have a part that is super quiet and a part that is super loud. So if we add a compressor, it's gonna compress too much on the loud parts until you have it more or less at the same volume of the quiet ones. So what I recommend you to do is, before of adding any compressor, just use a volume automation and do it manually. So this way it's gonna be a lot more transparent and the vocal is not gonna sound that over compressed. So well guys, here you have 25 production tips that are gonna help you a lot in your mixdown, in your production, in your workflow and everything. If you want more tips like this, just leave it down below in the comments and support a lot this video by sharing and liking, and I will think about more production tips to show you. So guys, I hope this tutorial helped you a lot. Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next video.